fans, and welcome back to my channel. So this is part 2 of my 2-day show in London vlog. Part 1 is where I review the show Hamilton, and this is the Pinocchio review. So if you haven't seen part 1, the link should be in the description below. Have a watch of that first before coming on to part 2. However, if you're just here for part 2 because you want to hear my reviews on the musical Pinocchio, then you've come to the right place, and carry on and continue to watch.
Very fun. It's really cool. Really good.
Magical.
Absolutely loved it. The costumes were amazing.
Absolutely gorgeous. Everything about it was just mind-blowing.
It's beautiful.
Music's wonderful. Kind of like trying to stop yourself singing along with the numbers.
The puppets are huge. You can really see the detail.
Pinocchio, the puppet with no strings.
I liked Stumbo because his deep voice sounded like my dad.
Stay out of trouble.
Jiminy Cricket, absolute favourite. Five-star.
So on April the 5th, I had a 2-show day in London, and the first show I saw was the matinee of Hamilton, and following on from that then I went over to the National Theatre to go and see the national production of Pinocchio. Now, I love the productions that the National Theatre have put on. Now, I've seen a few over the past few years, and I've loved every one of them, and Pinocchio was no exception. So the musical Pinocchio is based on the Disney film of the same name. It is about a wooden boy called Pinocchio who comes to life with the help of the Blue Fairy, and basically gets taken advantage of by Sly Fox, who manipulates him to running away to join Stromboli's travelling circus, where he performs as a puppet with no strings, hence the name of the song, to which then he escapes with the help of Jiminy Cricket, his conscious, and then subsequently he then gets distracted and manipulated again to go to Pleasure Island, where all the naughty children go, and he starts to become a donkey, once again gets rescued, and goes back home to his father figure, Geppetto, who has gone missing as he's gone to look for him. And they find Geppetto at the bottom of the ocean inside the giant whale, and Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio both get eaten up by the whale, and inside the whale's belly they hatch a plan to escape, which they do, and subsequently there's a big happy ending where the Blue Fairy turns Pinocchio into real, and they live happily ever after, as many fairy tales do. So this production relied quite heavily on puppetry as well as human interaction, and I thought it was very, very clever. I thought the puppets were outstanding. So these puppets were not just any old puppets, they were actually very large puppets to give you a perspective of adults and children and small puppet characters alike. Now, you can see from the programme here we have got these are rehearsal pictures, and I've got to be honest with you, the puppets in the programme haven't quite finished. There's some makeup still missing or some props missing from like hair or hats and things like that. So we've got one of the puppets there. And that is the, I've forgotten his name, it's the gentleman on Pleasure Island who kidnaps Pinocchio. You've also got then the puppet of Stromboli, minus his top hat and costume as well. I gotta say, brilliant character, and the actor who played it was phenomenal. I thought he just brilliant. Jiminy Cricket, small puppet, controlled by 2 characters, and you know, even though there were puppets being used as part of the show, which is very much like Avenue Q, after a while you tend not to look at the actors controlling the puppets, and you actually do believe that these puppets are real. I use the word puppets loosely because they are still characters. They, you know, they were part of the story, and you didn't think of them as puppets, so to speak. So who else have we got? There's the Blue Fairy, which doesn't look like the Blue Fairy. And that's because her cape was missing and her hair and a bit of makeup as well. But nevertheless, and here we are, and there's Geppetto again, also looking slightly different to what he was on stage. They didn't rely too much on puppets, I'll be honest with you. It wasn't just an all-puppet show. Again, it was all to do with the perspective. Now, obviously, Pinocchio was played by an adult, a life-size adult, so everything else had to be big. So the workstation, the workbench that he is made on is gigantic. Obviously, when Pinocchio lies on it, he looks small in comparison to the size of it. So you get a real perspective of the size of the whole set. Everything was just over the top, including the fairground, Pleasure Island, the lettering. So this show blew me away. For a children's show, I did find it to be quite dark in places. Not necessarily by the lighting, which I'll talk about in a minute, but because there were quite scary elements, even though it is a children's show. For example, Stromboli actually rips off one of the arms of the puppets completely and shows it to the audience. Obviously, the actors are the puppets, and obviously has a joking arm, so the arm is literally removed from the body and waved about. So it was quite scary in elements, and especially with the whale at the end as well. How they did that was very, very clever. But I can imagine it being quite frightening for some children as well. So yeah, it is more of a children's show as the Disneys are, hence why it started early at 7 o'clock. My only criticism of the show is that it is quite a short show. Act 1 was only an hour, as was Act 2, and I was actually out of the theatre by 9:30. Now, the show itself was in the Littleton Theatre in the National, one of my favourite theatres in the National. In fact, I like them all, though. But this one I like because of the intimacy of it. It's quite small and compact. And every seat's a great seat because the seating is all raked, I think, apart from maybe the first few rows, which are flat. I sat in row T, seat 18, which was probably about 3 rows from the back, and I gotta say, it was a great view. I've seen a few shows in this theatre already, and I've sat in different seats and rows. And I'll be honest with you, even maybe sitting in the back row, you still would be able to see everything and be able to take everything in as well. My only criticism of the theatre, though, is that the seating is not staggered. Even though it is raked and you can see over the person's head, if you did have a tall person in front of you, you would actually end up having to look around that person. Luckily for me, I didn't have that problem, but ideally I would like to have them slightly staggered. So yeah, the view was great. You could see the expression, you could see the whole stages clearly, you could see everything, and I would highly recommend this seat to anybody if you are booking in future, because it is slightly cheaper the further back you go. But like I said, every row in the stalls is a great view. I've not sat upstairs. I don't know what it's like up there. I'm sure it's another good view as well. I do prefer to sit in the stalls, and I think the further back you go, the better the experience is, because the stage itself is quite large and sometimes there's a lot to take in. So this production of Pinocchio, I was literally blown away. There was so much special effects and the lighting was just incredible. Like I said, the show was quite dark in tone but also quite dark in the lighting, and that's because there's a lot of special effects. For example, the Blue Fairy starts off appears many times through the whole of the show in the form of a floating blue flame that comes from the wings, from the tower, from different elements, and literally floats in the air before literally just disappearing. Very clever how they did that. And all of a sudden then the Blue Fairy would just appear on the stage through some, I don't know, some blackout blinds or a curtain or something like that, and the noise of her appearing, like a whoosh sound, would just, and you know, her presence would be there. I thought all the actors being the puppets in I've Got No Strings to Hold Me Up song, the choreography in that was phenomenal, where they all had bungee ropes and they did this whole dance routine intertwining with each other just to perform that show. And I think there's a photo in the programme of them doing that. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, it's not quite, but you get a little bit of like, here's Pinocchio in the middle and some of the bungee ropes attached to them, but they all had those and they were literally performing as puppets throughout the whole show. It's brilliant. Another element I loved, which I thought was very, very clever, is towards the end where they go and rescue Geppetto from the whale, where they are standing on top of this very, very tall platform. The whole stage is practically in darkness, and Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket literally leap off the top of this tall structure and start to float in as if they were in the water. Obviously they're on strings, but you can't see it because it's so dark. And the way the music played and the way they moved floating in air was incredible, and the sound was distorted to make them sound like they were underwater, and then there were elements of puppets floating around them and it was just so clever. And then the big reveal of the whale, and my goodness, this whale is massive. This whole whale fills the stage, again all puppet, opens its mouth, and both Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio get sucked into the whale, and all of a sudden the whole stage transforms inside the belly of the whale. And how the escape is very clever, again all through strings, but it was so well done. It just literally blew me away. The whole way through the show I was in awe, and when it got to the end I didn't want it to finish because I just loved all the interaction. I just loved the puppetry element of it. I loved the actors and how they interacted with the puppets and with each other, and it was just brilliant. And sadly it has closed now, and I would highly recommend anybody, if it does go on tour or come back, to go and see it. Because I was very, very, very impressed by it. Now, I will be honest, I don't know if it was a musical or a play, and the reason I say that is because to me a musical is practically sang all the way through, while this was mainly a play with some songs thrown in, but they weren't full complete songs. They would sing parts of the song and then all of a sudden it would just end. I don't think we clapped until the 45 minutes into the first act. And obviously they did sing When You Wish Upon a Star, which comes at the end of the whole show, but in the movie it comes at the very start when the Blue Fairy appears. There's a big number for that, like a big finish. But all the songs from the Disney film are in the show, but they're not complete songs, if you get me. So again, I call it a musical. It may not be music, but nevertheless, it was a brilliant, brilliant show. Very clever, and I absolutely loved it. And I would highly recommend anybody, if they can, in the future, if it does come back, to go and see it as well. Okay, so it was a small cast, and I would be honest, I didn't know any of the actors at all. I've read the bios, and I'm not familiar with any of their work. However, there's a wealth of a bit of acting ability on that stage, and everybody pulled together and they performed brilliantly as a close team. Pinocchio was played by Joe Idris Roberts, and And I gotta say, I thought he did a brilliant job as Pinocchio, as was Mark Hadfield as Geppetto. Gershwin Utash Jr. as Stromboli was just incredible. His voice and his presence on the stage, even though he was a puppet, obviously he held the puppet as well. Just brilliant. I thought he was phenomenal. James Charlton as Jiminy Cricket was brilliant. Rebecca Jane Davis as the Blue Fairy, she was brilliant as well. They were all brilliant. The whole cast and crew, like I said, each puppet I think had about 3 or 4 puppeteers, and they all worked brilliantly and in time and in intuitivity with each other to portray this character to be as realistic as possible. I mean, even the fingers moved, the way the arms moved, the head moved, everything just so realistic. They were picking things up, moving things around. Very, very, very clever. And it looks like 2018 is the year of the puppets, what with Pinocchio and the Grinning Man also playing in the West End. So if you have seen the show, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? What were the bits you enjoyed? What were the bits you didn't enjoy? Did you think it was dark, or did you think it was quite fun, short, long, anything? I'd love to hear from you. If you have got any, please put them in the comments box below. Okay, so thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And if you haven't seen part 1 where I review Hamilton, I would strongly recommend that you do. If you like my videos and want to see more, then please hit the subscribe button. I've got quite a lot of shows coming up this year with videos to upload, so if you want to see those, then please hit that subscribe and you'll be notified when they get posted. So anyway, thank you once again for watching, and until next time, happy theatre.